Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be. My name is Stacy Kruzik, and I'm with the Developer Relations team here at Zebra Technologies, and we want to welcome you today to our talk with our expert, Darren Campbell. He is a Zebra Senior Software Architect, and we'll be discussing today how to lock down your enterprise device. Before we begin, I just wanted to go over some general information and some housekeeping items. First of all, you can see up on our screen, we have our developer portal. We welcome all of you to participate, follow, and register on our developer portal. There you'll find tech trends, news, and all the latest happenings with Zebra and the field. More importantly, you'll find our developer events. And with the developer events, you can go ahead and go in there and you can register for all of our webinars. Our next webinar coming up is actually an Android virtual workshop. And we're pleased that we have our guest speaker, Andy Zolmek from Android Google, who will be diving deep into Android on the enterprise, specifically in some security concerns and GMS and zero touch and other items regarding Android. And that's upcoming on the October 23rd at 10 a.m. Central Time in the US, and we invite all of you to participate in that as well. But today we have Darren, and just a couple of housekeeping items. We'll wait for all of our questions at the end of this presentation. You can go ahead and type those in. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Darren to start our talk today.
Okay, thank you very much, Stacey. Let me just get this out of the way. Yep, so I'm going to be speaking about how to lock down your Android enterprise device. I may have missed the word Android out there. This is a talk that I have given in the past. I probably first wrote the first version of this at the beginning of the year, and I've spoken on this topic at our various developer events we had in North America and also in EMEA. It's quite a popular topic. We kind of had it as a breakout session, so I thought it was worth coming together and doing it as a DevTalk. I have updated all the content, so if you did join us previously at one of our developer events, or you've read the previous blog that I wrote back in April, there will be some new content here, but I'm not expecting anyone to come into this presentation having done homework or research, so hopefully there'll be something for all of the audience here today. We're talking about the options for to lock down your Android enterprise device so that a user, an end user, is not able to escape the application or applications that you want them to escape from, to restrict what they're able to do on the device. Maybe you want to restrict what settings they can access, what some of the hardware buttons on the device do. Maybe you want to lock those down. Just trying to be as flexible as possible. We're going to cover both industry standard techniques, which is the Android Enterprise, comes under various names depending on what documentation you're reading. Previously it was called Android for Work, now it's just known as Android Enterprise. You may also see the term COSU, which is corporate owned single use, or there's also other names as well. They have like AEDO for Android Enterprise Device Owner, managed devices, all of those pretty much same names for the same thing. We're just going to cover how that can be used to lock down your device. And then some of the Zebra specific technologies that only work on our devices. So we've got our MX tools, and we also have some not third party, these are first party because we wrote them, but they're post-loaded applications as well, Enterprise Home Screen and Enterprise Browser. So there's the various options that I'll be covering today. Just as a summary of those options, so first of all, the managed Android devices. This is, it's not supported end-to-end right now on Zebra devices. You're not going to be able to log into the Zebra developer portal and read all about how you can set up your Zebra devices to be a managed device and to use Google Play for Work, for example. But the individual elements of it will work. You can test them right now on your Zebra Marshmallow or upcoming Nougat devices. So it's worth getting the message out and starting to educate people. The key here is it's not proprietary to Zebra. So everything you read on enterprise.google.com about managed devices, about Play for Work, about managed configurations, all of that will work across Zebra, competitor, consumer, devices. If you have a mixed deployment, maybe you'll choose to go down a more industry standard approach. If you want more control over what you can do, then our MX layer, which is the layer that sits above Android, that's proprietary to our devices, and this is where we add all of our special sauce. It's not just for locking down your device, gives you additional control, there's administrative features, there's more powerful APIs, like the ability to set the clock, for example, without having to have elevated permissions in your application. As a small example, there's about 20 or 30 different services that we expose there. Just going to go through how you can lock down your device with that. Enterprise Home Screen is a post-installable tool. It's a home screen, but it's designed for enterprise use cases. So obviously, as a launcher, it has lockdown capabilities, but it also has a kiosk mode that I'll be covering as well. And then this is like brand new to this presentation, in the enterprise browser application, recently released this year, version 1.7, added some new configuration items to lock down your device. So we'll be going to be covering how to use those and what those do. So just to go through each of these in a bit more detail then. Managed Android devices, like I say, not proprietary to Google. You will see support coming in future in updates to our devices. I'm not at liberty, well, I don't really know myself exactly when messaging will go out or what Zebra will officially announce, etc. But support is coming. Managed devices in general align with Google's continued focus on enterprise use cases. So what we saw, like back in the day, as they say, when we first started releasing Android devices back like Gingerbread and Jelly Bean, Android was really a consumer platform, and we as a company were taking a risk at the time, believe it or not, in going with Android. And what we're seeing is Google more and more focusing, they're adding more features into the platform which are enterprise specific. And this is what they previously called Android for Work. This was first announced back in Lollipop, the Google I/O, I think it was, back in 2014. The name is now retired. It's just Android Enterprise Features, but you may see AFW in literature, so just watch out for that. It can get confusing. We have all these different acronyms, the BYOD, the COPE, the COSU. BYOD, bring your own device. It's not typically what you'd find on Zebra devices. It's like the use case might be, as an example, seasonal workers maybe being bought into a company. They need to have a device, but you don't want to give all of your seasonal workers a specific Zebra device. Then you might force them to provision their own Android or maybe even iOS phone, so they've bought their own device to work, and you're owning a profile on that device. You have this separation of a work profile and the rest of the device that the user is able to use. When we move into the COSU devices, this is where Zebra use cases really stand. You would expect the corporation to both own and manage the whole device. So corporate owned, single use. So the single use in this case might be as a barcode scanning application, as a kiosk device, for example. Maybe it's a tablet and you'd only expect your user to be using one or two different applications. Single use, kind of in inverted quotes there, it's not that you can only do one thing with the device. Obviously, it's an operating system, multi applications, but the idea is that you're doing a single job with that device. It's not your phone that you carry in your pocket and take phone calls and Angry Birds, etc. So in order to set up a managed device, this is an area which I see a lot of confusion out there in the field. You need to provision your device, and provisioning your device involves assigning a device owner that will manage the whole device. So a device owner is also called a device policy controller, and it has access to elevated permissions and a specific, more powerful API set called the Device Policy Manager APIs. So typically the device owner, well, it's always an application, but if you're using an EMM, then you would expect an enterprise mobility management solution like SOTI or AirWatch or Mobile Iron. You'd expect your EMM to provide the device owner for you, and they would have written their DO that works with their servers. If you want to test any of this configuration, however, you might not want to just to use an EMM straight away just for your testing, or you might not have access to an EMM. There are other ways to test or to provision your devices for test only. You can, and you'll see Google releasing videos about this, you can do an NFC bump. So you can have the device owner or the application, like the settings for it, or what the application is, where it can be downloaded, that can all be encoded into an NFC tag or another Android device, and you bump it against a device that's being newly provisioned, and then the provisioning will take place. You can scan a barcode as part of the as the setup wizard on this new device. If you enter as another way of doing it, you enter an email address in a certain form as well, and that will download the appropriate device owner for your company. You can also provision via an ADB command, which is used for testing, but it's probably the least likely technique you'll see being used in the field. I'll demonstrate that on the next slide because I find that easiest, but maybe you'll find it useful if you just want to set something up to have a device owner. They're the official techniques which are available from Google, but look out for additional options when the mode is fully supported by Zebra that work better with our devices. So I can't say what those modes will be, but just to let you know, we're not just going along with, hey, this is how you've got to do it. This is what Google say. We're working very closely with Google to ensure that the provisioning techniques work well for our customers and well on our devices. Okay, so there is if you're not familiar, there's a test DPC application which Google have released. This is really useful for playing, to be honest, with the managed devices capabilities. You can download this from Google Play, which is what I'll show in the video here, or you can use test DPC. Actually, let's just show the video. Hopefully these videos are going to work well. So I have a TC51 connected via remote desktop. It's running GMS because it has Google Play on it. You can also install the test DPC. You can build it. The source is all on GitHub, so you could build it yourself using Android Studio. But you see here, the test DPC, what I'm going to set up as the device owner. It's not currently the device owner. I need to remove all my accounts from the device, thus revealing my email address. It's just a test work email, so don't bother emailing that. The device, now I've removed the accounts, I'm able to just confirm that the app is not an admin. I can run a shell command, as being shown on the screen now, which will set the device owner to the test DPC. So in this case, test DPC was already installed on the device. The alternative, if I was at the startup wizard, I could have entered my email address as, I think it's AFW pound or hashtag or hash, whatever people say, test DPC, all one word. And then if I click next, the setup wizard, as long as it's running, I think it works on Marshmallow, but it definitely works on Nougat devices, that will download and install the test DPC from Google Play. It does need to be a GMS device. And you can then swipe up, make sure you select setup, provision, manage my whole device, and then next, and it does the same thing. It sets the test DPC as the device owner. So having provisioned that, you're able to experiment with some of the managed Android application features. There are a number of features. For example, you're able to restrict which packages are able to run. This is a new API they introduced in Nougat, so you can prevent certain applications from running from the DPC, from the device that's acting as the device owner. What I want to cover today is a feature called lock task mode. So this lock task mode was introduced in Android Marshmallow. It differs from pinning, which was a feature introduced in Lollipop, in that it is aimed at enterprise use cases. So the difference is pinning, the use case is I'm watching, the example I use, I'm watching a YouTube video. I want to share this with my friend on my personal phone, but I don't want my friend looking through all of my pictures. I can pin YouTube to my phone using my personal identification number. Once it is pinned, I can give my phone to my friend and they won't be able to escape from YouTube without either a button combination, and then they'll have to type in my PIN or my password in order to exit out of YouTube. that's obviously very consumer focused. When you think of locked task mode, think of like the kiosk maybe in a hotel. The concierge has a kiosk when they're greeting clients to their hotel, and have an app on the tablet device, or maybe it's a catalog application that's running in a for the personal shopper devices where you have to interact with a tablet in order to release the personal shopper device. Maybe it's the tablet running there, and you only want to restrict your users to a single app or multiple apps. And so I just want to show how that works with a series of videos on the following slides. These are quite short. I'll just talk over what's happening here. This is the base case. This is screen pinning. The way you activate locked task mode, first of all, you whitelist the application that you want to show as the kiosk mode, and then you somehow invoke locked task mode. So this first example shows we have not whitelisted the application. We're just calling start locked task mode, and notice how that we're given some UI told the screen is pinned. If you want to unpin it, then you can click these two buttons. It does depend on the version of OS you're using, exactly how you unpin. See, I'm trying to press back and home, nothing's happening because the screen is pinned. The only way I can escape this is either by touching that button combination or by invoking stop lock task mode. So those two buttons are calling methods on, I think it's the activity class. There's a start lock task mode and a stop lock task mode. So that's the base case. That's not lock task mode, that's screen pinning. So some of the naming terminology there can get a bit confusing. I was calling start lock task and it was entering screen pin mode. So just beware of that. And the little the toast was showing screen pinned. This next demonstration is the exact same, but this time the application is first being whitelisted. This is an application I wrote myself. It's available on GitHub. I mean, I don't want to boast too much about my application because it's just two buttons, but the source is available to anyone who wants to use it. So I'm whitelisting the app using test DPC. This is a managed device, as I previously shown. So here now, let me pause this. The difference between pinning the screen and invoking lock task mode, we've lost the home button at the bottom there. I would point to it, but the bar keeps appearing. We've lost the recents button with T's. We've also lost the battery icon and the Wi-Fi icon. Some people have said to us that it would be good if those are still shown. That is obviously that's part of core Android, but that is a use case that we're exploring with Google to optionally still have those shown in the status bar when we're in lock task mode. But also notice this screen pinned. This is probably a bug in the underlying OS. It may well be fixed when you test. I'm testing this on Marshmallow, but obviously it's not pinned. We've entered lock task mode. So some of this can get a bit confusing. So hopefully by me doing this demonstration, it avoids some of the confusion for you that I went through when I first had to play with this. So I can't escape by pressing the back key. That's, it's there, but it doesn't do anything. I can unpin by hitting that stop lock task mode button. The screen is unpinned. We're not in lock task mode, and we can exit the app. It's all good. The demonstration here, you don't have to enter lock task mode from the application, from a single application. So you can have multiple whitelisted apps. And here I'm going to show how we can, well, we've got the test DPC, we've got our device owner here. This is whitelisted, and we've also got the test app. We're going to whitelist that now. So we've got two whitelisted applications. We start lock task mode from the device owner, and now we're in lock task mode. We can launch that other application, that test application. Here, I'm doing it via I think I just sent an intent through ADB, I constructed an intent to launch my test app. You can imagine that rather than the DPC there, it was some kind of menu application. So you had like do inventory, and when you clicked on the do inventory button, it launched the inventory app, or you had deliveries, and you click on that and there's the app to handle deliveries. Just continuing on also notice, because all the buttons, the home button, the recents buttons have disappeared, this is the most visually consistent way of locking down the device. So we'll come to the comparisons with that later on. So when I hit back, I unwind the stack and I go back to the original whitelisted application. Now I've fully unwound the stack, I can't go back anymore. There was only 2 whitelisted apps in the stack being shown. And I believe that's the end of the demonstration video. How long have I got left? Oh no, okay, so I'm launching the app again. Oh, everyone. So I'm trying to stop lock task mode from an app that didn't start lock task mode. That's a security error. You have to call stop lock task mode before start lock task mode, sorry, before then calling stop lock task mode. And then finally, I'm calling stop lock task mode in the DPC in order to exit lock task mode. It's not until you say that over and over again that you realize it's quite a long thing to say. Okay, how do we check the state? How do we check what state the device is in as an application? So there's 2 ways to do this. If you are the device policy controller with access to the device policy manager DPM APIs, then you're able to determine whether or not other applications on the device are whitelisted. In all likelihood, people listening to this DevTalk aren't going to be writing DPCs because just not many people end up writing DPCs. Most people end up using them with their applications. From your app, you're able to determine whether or not the device is in lock task mode by calling this get lock task mode state, which is part of the activity manager class, as I can see by hovering over the hyperlink there. Oh no, oh, spoilers. Okay, so let's just demonstrate that very briefly. So we are again whitelisting the test app. I created all these videos so that they work standalone. So from the DPC, this is just functionality of the test DPC. I can check whether any application is permitted to, is whitelisted, and that one does. That was the package name of my test app. From the test app, I have this extra button I've now added, so it's got 3 buttons in it. I can see it's saying state none, so we're not in lock task mode. When I enter lock task mode and I call get lock task mode state, I'm told state lock. So that toast is coming from my test app, my amazing test app here, and just very showing you what functionality is available to you. And I believe that's the end. Yeah, okay. So finally then, in this series of demonstrations, there is a way for your app to always launch, to always invoke lock task mode if it's whitelisted. So there's an attribute in the manifest called lock task mode, believe it or not. It says there are 4 different parameters you can give it, although never and always are only available to system apps. So you're only really going to be using normal or if whitelisted for this manifest attribute. Normal is what we've demonstrated so far. So I just have a video here showing what happens if you launch a whitelisted app that has if whitelisted specified in the manifest. And well, at least I hope that's what we're doing. Okay, so I just make sure the app is whitelisted again. And so first of all, I'm going to not whitelist it. And now when I launch the application, notice that nothing happens. We're not in lock task mode. Our handy button there is telling us none. I'm just going to close that, but I could have kept it open probably. So we go into manage lock task mode. We now whitelist the application, and no prizes for guessing what's going to happen here. Now when we launch the app, because we have if whitelisted specified in the manifest, the screen is pinned automatically. So as an application developer, we're now sure, as long as the administrator's done their job, we're now sure that the device is in lock task mode. And we can call start and stop to exit lock task mode should we choose to do so, although I wouldn't recommend mixing the manifest with the API's techniques, but it is possible should you choose to do so. So thanks for sticking with me. Hopefully that's given like a visual demonstration of lock task mode and what it does. I think it's better to see it in action rather than to read about it in Google's documentation. Obviously, it is documented on Google's developer.android.com, so feel free to read that. But yeah, hopefully, thanks for sticking with me. The MX section is next, so we're shifting gears a little bit. MX, again, as a little reminder, proprietary technology to Zebra. It's where we put all of our enterprise features, be they administrator. They're accessible via at runtime as well to applications. So if it has developer use cases, runtime use cases, staging use cases, all of that stuff goes in our MX layer. It's separated out into what we call managers or configuration service providers, CSPs, and it is an industry standard. We've kind of followed this industry standard, and the XML is all industry standard. The advantages of MX over some of the techniques I previously, managed Android, is this works all the way back to Jelly Bean, where we first introduced it. Now, don't expect, this has improved over the years. Obviously, we're adding features to it, we're making it better. So don't expect something you write today with all of the brand spanking shiny features to work exactly the same on a Jelly Bean device. We make our documentation clear that Jelly Bean released with MX, I don't know what, probably it was version 2 or maybe 4 or something, but back then, you select from the documentation the version, or only use those features which work with the version of MX which is on the device that you're deploying to. And you obviously want to deploy to the lowest common denominator of devices. If you've got a mixture of Jelly Bean and Marshmallow, then you may choose to just use the functionality that works on Jelly Bean, or maybe you'll have 2 different deployments. But the key is that in contrast to managed Android that really requires Marshmallow, maybe even Nougat or above, this will work going all the way back. It's the best technique for securing your device. Now, what I mean by that is you're going to see some overlap, not only with managed Android, but also with the post installable applications, which I'm going to be showing after this section. This is the Zebra recommended way for securing your device. So we have a whitelisting feature in MX that controls what can run on your device. There is a whitelisting feature in Enterprise Home Screen that will work perfectly well, but if you want a more thorough solution, obviously both solutions work very well, but if you want a more comprehensive solution, then MX is probably the best bet for you. For example, it has additional functionality like I think you can provide like a hash of the application that you're whitelisting to make sure that there's not been any nefarious activity happening on the device that can try to circumvent our whitelisting. It's more secure in that respect. We are going to continue to improve it. This is where we as a company can add additional functionality. So although I'm saying we're embracing managed Android, we can add features to MX a lot quicker and with a lot more consideration of our specific use cases than we can get features added to managed Android, which we have to do through our relationship with Google, etc., etc. So having just gone on about what MX is, probably a bit too long, although it has about 20, 30 profiles or managers, the 4 managers that I wanted to call out here, which help us lock down the device, are the Access Manager, which provides a whitelisting feature for application, prevents installation of certain applications, or even prevents running. App signatures, that was the phrase I was trying to think of on the previous slide. So you can specify the signature of the app which can run. It's the best way to prevent access to the overall system settings. UI Manager, you can prevent the notification shade from coming up, prevent the tile UI. You can disable applications from running with the Application Manager, a little bit of overlap with application whitelisting, but the way I think of it, Access Manager, more comprehensive, whitelisting, blacklisting, all that good stuff. You can prevent applications from submitting XML. That's your Swiss Army knife, but if you want something that's easy and just works, I find the App Manager is a better way to do that. And then various ways of locking down the Settings Manager. So it does get a little bit fine-grained. Like if you imagine you click on Settings and then you click on Apps, like have an Android device in your head right now. That's the application settings that you can disable. But if you only want to disable the ability for after that to click on an application and get the info of that app, then that's the application info settings. So it can be a little bit confusing maybe reading the documentation for some of this. All the more reason for a demonstration. Now, I have given this topic before. I demoed this on the February 2017 DevTalk, which was ages ago. I had like a little sample app at the time, which I would run through and say, well, this is what the access manager does, this is what the application manager does, and it was all good. But if I could hear you on the phone muted now, I can imagine you're saying, boo, give us something new. So I thought, what can I do to make this a little bit more interesting? So I went away and I created a Stage Now barcode. So if you're not familiar with Stage Now, this is our way of provisioning our Zebra devices. The idea is that it's an application that's running on all of our devices, and by scanning a barcode, it will apply certain settings and profiles to that device. So the profiles you define with a desktop tool, and in this case I've defined some profiles to lock down my device. It doesn't have to be locking down your device. These profiles are incredibly flexible. You could have ones to install an app and send an intent and uninstall some other app and disable something else. Set the clock, all sorts. To have a look through our MX documentation. But here I'm going to be showing how to lock down your TC51 with a single barcode. Well, I say a single barcode. There was so much XML, it actually spans 2 barcodes, but that's not a problem. We can just scan 2. We have incredibly fast scanning engines here at Zebra on our TC51s. Just beware, with any kind of lockdown testing, you don't want to be in a situation where you've locked the device down and you can't unlock the device, because I've been there. It's not nice. You can scan this undo lockdown device barcode, which is a little bit smaller. That just takes your device back to the way it was. Alternatively, I also I added to the whitelist of apps that can submit XML or that can interact with the MX layer, as another way of phrasing that, my original test app, which is called MX Lockdown. So if you do find yourself having locked down your device in this way, you can still unlock your device with my old application available on GitHub. So hopefully you won't brick your device. It is possible to get out of any of these techniques by doing a full reset. So press and hold power and then hold down the push to talk key before the bootloader comes up, and then you can apply a full system update that way if you have access to those through a service contract. But we're digressing. So here we are. Here's a demonstration of showing, first of all, what a user could do before we've locked it down, and then we'll go through in the same video what happens after we've scanned that barcode. So here we are. Here's our user. They have all these apps, system apps, user apps available to them. They're going to play some Angry Birds. Now, if this was Twitch, then this would be the rest of the presentation. I would just sit here and play Angry Birds. As you can see, I'm very good at it, but it's just a demo. They can launch Angry Birds. They can launch the gallery. I don't know why I did that in a demo. They can swipe down. So we see here, we've got the navigation bar. They can do they can disable the Wi-Fi. Good luck getting your job done if you work remotely and you disable Wi-Fi. What else can we do as a nefarious user trying to avoid work? We can look at all these settings. I can turn off my data. I can turn off my Bluetooth so it doesn't work with my printer anymore. I can launch Chrome. Let's do some internet browsing. I can go to my favorite websites, XKCD or whatever other website I choose to go to. What else can I do? I can change the volume. So like when my boss tries to ring me, I can, in all honesty, say I didn't hear the phone go off because the ringer was too low. I can, what am I doing now? I'm disabling application. You don't want people disabling applications. That's a really good way to stop people doing their job, or to allow people to stop doing their job. So here we go. Let's scan the barcode. Launch Stage Now. So it's 2 barcodes, like I say. Scanned them, and now, as if by magic, the device is staged and it should be completely locked down. So now I can't play Angry Birds because it's not on the whitelist. It doesn't exist anymore. Chrome's not on the whitelist. That's not there. The home key doesn't work. I disabled that as part of this profile. I can't pull down the navigation, whatever it's called, the notification pull down. They've gone. I can't do that on the device or remotely. My settings, I can't do much in the settings. I can probably change the display, but that's about it. I think I'm stuck here. I what am I trying to do now? Chrome's not there. I think that's what I'm showing here. There's no Chrome because I disabled that. Oh, I do have a browser though. Let's try and disable that like we were going to just now. Nope, can't do that. OS X admin has disabled app info. So, I mean, that's probably more of a starting point than anything else. Also, I couldn't adjust the volume there. I did try it in the video, but hopefully that's been a little bit more interesting than just watching each individual manager be invoked one at a time. So that completes the MX portion of the presentation. Let's move on to Enterprise Home Screen. So when I gave this talk in person, there was a little bit of uncertainty what EHS was. It is, I don't want to say it's just a launcher because that doesn't do it justice, but it is a launcher designed for enterprises. So you can do things like change the title change the title here, you can change the iconography, you can change the background, you can choose which applications are available to your user. Here we have 4 apps. You configure this through an XML file that's on the device. You can do things like disable USB debugging, and notably for this presentation, there's a kiosk mode. We'll demonstrate that next. I have a short video showing exactly how to use Enterprise Browser, EHS. I do have one that says Enterprise Browser next. So here we are, we're in user mode. We've got the calculator, not many settings, very similar to last time. We're on a TC55 now, just because that's the device that I had pre-configured. This is really good information. This is the battery and signal available to the user whenever they need it. It's user information. They can't change it. They can just see what the battery is, so they know when they're likely to need to swap their battery out. As an administrator, so like I say, it is configured by XML, but we can also, there's a UI for it. I can add apps, so I press and hold on the calendar there. I can press and hold on the email to add those 2 apps to the user screen. Some of the preferences available to me, I can change the title, so this appears at the top near the status bar, not in the status bar, near the status bar. I've just changed that to hello. What else can I do? I think I can, you can do all of these things that you see here. Kiosk mode enabled, I'll demonstrate that shortly. Wallpaper, when I recorded this, I realized I didn't have any different wallpaper on the device, but it needs to be on the device, but that's how you change it. So those settings have now taken effect. Enterprise Home Screen Hello is now there. I have the calendar and email apps that I didn't have previously. This is a way of locking down your device. You could think of it that way, because we've now restricted the user to those 6 techniques. It is actually additionally powerful because you can, I don't know if encrypt is the right word, but you can, let's say, encrypt the XML file to make sure that someone can't just extract it via USB or some other technique and modify it that way. So yeah, it is more secure than maybe I've presented here. So that was Enterprise Home Screen in a nutshell, more or less. Let's talk about the kiosk mode. So by default, kiosk mode is off. You can compare this to lock task mode that we discussed at length previously, where lock task mode had multiple applications that could be launched. Like I described this menu where you had an inventory app and a deliveries app and a product app. I don't know, you have multiple apps that you could launch. Here, kiosk mode is strictly a single app. You enable kiosk mode with the very C-friendly technique of a non-zero. I think it's non-zero. It might be 1. I'm not sure how they coded it, but anyway, put a 1 here and you're good to go. And then a very easy way to soft lock your device again that I fell into and had to do a complete reboot. You disable kiosk mode by pushing an XML file to the device. So don't get yourself in a situation where you enable kiosk mode in the UI and then you don't know where the XML location is to undo it because you've disabled USB and you don't have access to a file browser and all sorts of other problems. So maybe enable kiosk mode in your testing by pushing XML as well as disabling. This is the path that works on my TC55. I presume that would work on most, if not all, devices, but your mileage may vary. I'm not an expert in deploying, I'm afraid. But anyway, let's watch the video. So here we have a TC55 connected. This is the config that I showed earlier. So we have a kiosk mode for calculator 2. And if I just scroll down, you can see that I have enabled kiosk mode with a 1 here, just to prove that I did it. And I use Notepad++. So here's the calculator app. I can do some calculations and I can exit. We have the non-kiosk mode at the moment. As soon as I push the kiosk mode XML, the calculator is launched. I can't exit via the home key. I can try back. I see some strange visual stuff. The app doesn't lose its state. Well, certainly this kiosk app doesn't. It's still in the recent app, so I can try and close it, but it always goes back to calculator. Compare that with the experience of a managed. Sorry, I'm trying to talk too quickly now. Of a managed Android device, where when you enable lock task mode, the actual home key and the recents key were disappeared, or they were taken away. Very poor way of phrasing that, I apologize. So here you still have the buttons, but they don't actually work. Maybe that's a good thing. I'll put my zebra hat on and say, well, this is good, because now when the user presses it, they can see that that the application is not designed to do this. They can't get rid of it with that technique. Also, remember, this works all the way back to I think it's Jelly Bean, and back then we didn't have buttons that the operating system could remove. They were actual physical buttons at the bottom of the screen. So you're still going to have the buttons on some devices that support EHS no matter what. Let's just continue with the presentation. So I'm not sure what I'm doing here. I'm probably removing kiosk mode. Here we are. So I've set it to 0. And that was the end of the video. So I already showed removing kiosk mode. The key there is to remember to press the home button after you've removed kiosk mode, because because if you don't press the home button, the calculator or whatever kiosk app is still shown, and you might think, oh, it's not worked, but it has worked. It has deployed the XML. You just have to hit that home button. Okay, so we're in the final stretch. Onto Enterprise Browser. So Enterprise Browser is another post-installed application available only on Zebra devices. Now, I say post-installed. That's true of the majority of our devices. However, you will find it installed on pre-installed on, I think, our MC18 product, which is our personal shopper device, because it fits very well in that device. But it will work across. If I say all, someone will probably find a device it doesn't work on, but it works across all of our Zebra device portfolio. It does support Windows Mobile and Android, so it's a really good option if you're considering porting your applications from Windows Mobile to Android. I actually gave a whole DevTalk on this. It supports Pocket Browser, it supports Row Mobile Suite Shared Runtime, and it's the closest thing we've got to a JavaScript development framework. So it's not comparable really with EMDK, the Android and the Xamarin SDKs that we have. It is an industrial browser where you write your application in HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and your application running in the EB shell, for want of a better term, has access to our device hardware through JavaScript APIs. It's probably the most concise way to describe it. As of version 1.7, released in July 2017, it has some settings that you can configure in the config.xml for that have some ability to lock down the device. So we're just going to go through these. There's a couple of things to be aware of in the naming. Set home key disable, that one's kind of obvious. Set status bar disable will disable not the status bar. You can still see the status bar. You can still see the battery and signal. It actually disables the notification pull down. So watch out for that. Back key disables the back key. Incidentally, you need to enable, confusingly, set home key disable in order to disable the home key, if that makes sense. So you're setting this value to true if you want the item disabled. Set volume button or bouton, watch out for the spelling here, that will be fixed in the subsequent release of EB, disables the volume, and recent apps is your recents key on the right hand side. As you've probably come to expect by now, there is a video. This is the last one of the presentation. To avoid bricking the device, soft locking, not bricking really, I'm demonstrating this in two different config files. So the first one will do everything but the home key, and the second one will demonstrate disabling the home key. So here we go. Again, it's a TC51. It has Enterprise Browser on it at the moment. Well, you can see on the left here, we have the configuration for the new custom kiosk mode. I say new, it was released in July. It's a few months ago now. These are all set to 0 at the moment. And so let's just go through what's happening. So I can pull down the notifications. I can adjust the volume. I can probably do the recents key, and I can do the back key, which will exit Enterprise Browser. Notice how, and we'll come on to the difference in a minute, notice how I'm exiting Enterprise Browser via the back key, and it's not invoking any of this exit password option. So just be aware that it bypasses exit password. So now I set these to 1. I would expect now the notification pull down, the back key, the recents to all be disabled. I push that config. I do need to relaunch Enterprise Browser in order for these settings to take effect. So I'll just make sure it's closed and then reopen it. And then ignore who it's licensed to. That's just because I still have my very old login to the license site, and it avoids having to go through people to generate licenses. So I cannot swipe anything down. The recents key doesn't work. I still have the visual aberration similar to what I saw with Enterprise Home Screen. So it's probably using the same API underneath, but everything I said about EHS also applies to EB there. And I can exit using the home key. That works. Notice how I used the recents key after I had pressed the home key. So the recent key disable only takes effect whilst EB is the foreground application, as you'd probably expect. You wouldn't really want EB having an effect on your recents key from the background. So here we are. I've pressed the menu key now, and you'll see that I'm not able to exit the app. The only way I can exit the app is by the Return to OS button on the screen there. What that's doing is calling the EB API for application.quit. And when you do that, it will see, is there an exit password? Yes. Okay, then I need to give a dialog box. I just bashed the keyboard and B came out. So that was the password I set for myself. So B, exit, and then that's how you exit Enterprise Browser. So you might imagine that that functionality, the exit functionality, is sitting in some kind of admin window that only an admin is able to access, and they know the password. So you're still avoiding your users from exiting your app, but you are enabling admins to exit, and so you're not going to soft lock your device. So thanks for staying with me if you have been. So just to summarize the options available at the moment that we discussed today, obviously there are other options outside of Zebra and et cetera, but we have managed Android devices coming soon, but you can play with it now in Marshmallow devices and higher. Mobility extensions, proprietary to Zebra, works all the way back to Jelly Bean and provides a lot more than lockdown functionality. There is additional lockdown functionality going to come in MX. I can't disclose details or timelines or whatever, but trust me, it's in the backlog. It is an area we're still investing in. And the 2 post-loaded applications maybe don't work as a full solution on their own. For example, you need to set the launcher, the custom launcher of the device. How do you set the custom launcher to use EHS? Well, you can do that with MX. So with a combination of StageNow and EHS, you would be able to completely lock down the device. So it's more understanding all of the options available. And EB, the tool, recently released new functionality which has lockdown features. So I reviewed this earlier on today, this presentation, just to make sure I knew what I was talking about, and I realized that all of these resources are things I've written myself. So please take this with a pinch of salt. Maybe some of this will be biased. You might want to search elsewhere on the Zebra developer portal, but everything I have shown in this presentation is available here. You have my 2 test applications available on GitHub. You have a related blog post, a talk I gave on a Well, I didn't. It wasn't on this topic. It was on new features of Android Marshmallow, and I went over the MX lockdown features during that. So, thanks for listening, and I'll now open to questions. I think I have to go over to Stacey, who has all of the questions, please.
Yes, Darren, thank you so much. That was excellent. We actually do have a question from Jeff. In EB, is the rendering engine determined by the OS, i.e. KitKat, Marshmallow, or the EB version? I understand that the older version of the one we were using, WebKit, and the newer one are using Chromium. Can you please clarify this?
Yes. So when you say the older version was using WebKit, a very, very long time ago, without breaking out into song, when we were on Gingerbread, we did have our own WebKit rendering engine, and also for the very early Jelly Bean devices. And I'm going right back to the ET1, maybe 2012 or something like that. You know, it's a while ago now. Nowadays, it uses the rendering engine that's on the device, and this will it depends what version of the operating system you're running as well. So it's whatever Android is using as the web view. So I mean, if you go all the way up to Oreo, for example, that's using Chrome on the device, and you can even change whether it uses the Alpha Chrome or the Beta Chrome by changing that in your developer options. Obviously, we don't have any Oreo devices, but you go back to Nougat, it's going to use the version of Android WebView, or is it using Chrome? Certainly, we had the Android WebView in Lollipop that's available from the Play Store on GMS devices, but bear in mind we have the non-GMS devices, the AOSP, and on those it's going to be using the WebView that's built into the platform. So you get yourself into a situation where it's possible that on two exactly identical devices, one with GMS and one with non-GMS, you have different versions of the rendering engine, because the GMS one is using the Android System WebView from the Play Store, and the non-GMS one is using the one that's built into the platform. You can only update that via a platform update. I did do, I can't remember where it was, but if you just bear with me for half a minute. If it doesn't load straight away, then we'll move on. But I did write a blog post on Enterprise Browser, migrating from Windows Mobile CE to Android with Enterprise Browser. And at the very bottom of this, there's a table. Here we are. And it tells you all of the different browsers that Enterprise Browser is going to use on the different versions of the device. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, and while we're waiting to see if there's any more questions, I'm just going to chime in here and just remind everybody to please visit us on developer.zebra.com, where you can obtain copies of all of our presentations, see Darren's blog here and others for that information and tech trends. Also, I want to mention, please follow our Twitter handle @ZebraDevs, and you'll find links to all of our information and upcoming DevTalk information as well. If there's no more questions, which there doesn't appear to be, I think we are done for today's webinar, and we appreciate everybody participating, and thank you, Darren, for your insight on this topic. Everybody have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the 23rd for our Android workshop with Andy Zomek from Android Google.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.